Somewhere between black or white, there's that shade of gray. I'm Mark Gray, and welcome to the Gray Area. And today's guest, we are joined by somebody who is innovating the world, literally, of recruiting for HBCUs. For 20 years, Robert Mason and his website, commonblackcollegeapp.com, have been literally shrinking the cost and making it a lot easier for students and their families to apply to historically black colleges. And he joins us right now, proud card-carrying member of that Virginia State Alumni Association. And as one who went to Morgan State, I guess orange and blue is the hue, huh?
Absolutely, and Clark Atlanta. I went to Virginia State undergrad and Clark Atlanta grad school, so I would be remiss if I were not to mention both.
Okay, so you'll find a way to make one too, huh?
Absolutely.
How about that?
Absolutely.
You got to give me a pull for that, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm impressed. I must admit, I'm extremely impressed. The fact that you knew our school colors, but when you consider the fact where you live, I can imagine that. But to know that it's found a way to make one as far as the Clark Atlanta tagline. That's impressive.
Again, in the interest of full disclosure, Mom's introduced the African Women's Studies program down there. So, spent 10 great years in Atlanta, and I love it like it's home. And I hate to see what's going on down there right now, but that's a topic for a different podcast. Like I mentioned, for 20 years, you have been making access to HBCUs affordable and available to families who are interested in the idea of, going to a HBCU. So where'd you get the idea for this?
Mark, I tell you, it was a early morning. Well, let me back up a bit. I've been in black college admissions for almost 30 years, having started in the admissions office at Virginia State. And after leaving Virginia State and going to graduate school at Clark Atlanta, I started to work in the admissions office there. So after about maybe 8 or 9 years at Clark Atlanta, and I was primarily responsible for our recruitment efforts. And we had a fairly significant budget that allowed us to travel to locales throughout the country and the world. And as a result, when I would go to different places, I was always asked, well, why are certain colleges not being represented? And this was around the same time that the Common App had come out. So at about 6 o'clock one morning, I was thinking about this whole idea of a Common App. And I thought to myself, what would happen if I could put together a service based on the same concept, but the real difference would be, it would be a true Common App where students would be able to use one application, pay one fee, and apply to several different HBCUs at the same time. So that very next day, I started to put some things together, reached out to a couple friends of mine at some different HBCUs to find out, what they thought about the idea. And a couple of them, quite honestly, said, Rob, I think it's borderline genius because of the simplicity of it, what it represents, to put together a service whereby we literally represented so many different HBCUs throughout the country, and students would be able to use one application and to pay one fee. Again, they were saying, I think it's borderline genius. So I reached out to a couple friends in particular, and we put together, while I was still at Clark Atlanta, a paper application. Shout out to Tanya Mitchell for helping me with that, my little sister. And we were started out.
What years are we talking about here?
So this was around, Mark, this had to be let's see, I came down to Atlanta around 89, no, 99, 80, 89, 90. When did Clark College in Atlanta?
About 1990,
Because
yeah.
I was in the first graduate class.
Yeah, so that's about it. It all runs together after those.
Right, it does. And you would think I would know this because there's a book being written and they asked me some of the very same questions. So chronologically, it was probably around 89, 90 or so. And started out with 5 schools. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, I found one of the first applications that a student completed. And like I say, started out with 5 schools. I think I had 80 students to use the application that first year. And, the next year, within 3 years, we had about, because these are some of the pictures up here that you can see in the back of me, when we had a paper application, we had 20 schools and 10 schools and we were charging $20. And here we are after 20 years. We now represent 54 HBCUs and over 250,000 students have completed the application.
And let's talk about that for a second, how it works, because for $20, students can apply to 54 schools, all HBCUs. That's just an amazing number. Why isn't everybody doing this?
It varies, Mark. We reach out to different HBCUs throughout the course of the year to say, look, if you're interested in coming on board, please feel free to do so. There are some colleges that cannot be a part of the service because they cannot waive their application fee. There are some colleges that cannot be a part of the service because there is a common app of sorts in their state that is being used. And some of it obviously is politics to some extent for some schools. But with the number of students that are completing the application and based on some of the things that you and I talked about previously that I'm sure we'll probably cover, I am one to believe that many of those schools will ultimately come on board.
Now, when you talk about the Common App, all right, even before we get to the Common Black College App, what was or what is the Common App for those who may not know or have heard of it? Because when you're on the cutting edge, there's still people that are behind the curve. We got to coach them up a little bit. And I'm unfamiliar with the Common App concept.
So the Common App is an application whereby the majority of the schools on there are just that, majority schools, predominantly white institutions. And it's Common App in the sense that you're completing an application to apply to each individual school, but it's not literally, in my way of thinking, a quote unquote Common App, because Common App to me means that every school is getting the same application. But with the Common App, it's a little different. You have to pay an application fee to apply to each individual school. So basically, we think we took the best of what the Common App offered and augmented that by allowing students to use one application, pay one fee, and apply to all of the colleges that we represent.
And it saves. I mean, that's got to be big for middle class families. So what's the greatest challenge that you've met in terms of reaching people? Are you finding that now with the emergence of the internet and new technology? Certainly, if you've got the Black College app and it's just flourishing like it is right now, has technology been the biggest key to how you've gotten to where you are?
In terms of growing the brand, yes, absolutely. Okay. Because, and I have to thank Jim Evans. In 2005, we moved from an application whereby I would literally go to Kinko's or Office Max and print applications and send them to each individual institution. So Jim Evans, who was a partner of mine for 15 or so, maybe 15, 16, 17 years, allowed us to automate that process. So we went from 600-700 apps to students, 5,000 or 6,000 a year. for a couple years, and that number started to increase with each year that passed. The biggest challenge, Mark, maybe 10 years ago, because when I first started the company, within weeks of that, not weeks, maybe a year or so, I was hired by Kaplan with test prep people. And my boss found out that I owned the Common Black College application. And Mark, I was a lousy salesman. I mean, the absolute worst salesperson that you could ever imagine. You know what I mean? It just wasn't my thing. So I will never forget it, man. It was like it happened yesterday. We were in Philadelphia for a sales meeting. And the president of the K-12 division, which was Stuart Udell, who I'm extremely close to now, and actually we have a partnership with a company that he runs called Achieve 3000. He's like, Rob, look, I understand that you own this company called the Common Black College app. And he's like, would you be interested in selling it? Now, bear in mind, I had the company at this point maybe 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 4 or 5 years. I said a year, but maybe 4 or 5 years. So to have somebody make an offer like that, to me, for a kid from the hood, who up to that point had never made more than $35,000 a year, for him to offer me, he said, I'll give you $200,000 for it. And without even hesitating, I said, absolutely not. And I don't know why. No, I mean, I don't know why. I don't even know what 2,000, at that point, I didn't even know $200,000 what it looks like. So, but I said, absolutely not. So he's like, okay, I respect that, I understand. So I was like, but what I will do, we can establish a partnership whereby because at that time, Kaplan was trying to do business in various urban school districts throughout the country. So we partnered with each other whereby everywhere that Kaplan went, everywhere they got a contract, they would underwrite the cost for students to use the application. So that was in countless school districts from Philadelphia to LA to Kansas City to Atlanta. So that helped to grow the brand in terms of counselors becoming familiar with the application. Because truth be told, I never had a quote unquote marketing budget per se.
Right.
So that truly helped to grow the brand significantly so that when we finally parted with them, because of these relationships, we were able to further those partnerships with schools and school districts throughout the country. And that has sort of sustained us over the years up until I just I partnered with Paul Williams, who is my current business partner and CTO. And he has sort of taken the service to the next level. We went from 10, 11,000 kids a year using the app to now somewhere between 20 to 25,000. That's huge.
It is.
Yeah. So, but I will say this, speaking directly to your question, that's the biggest challenge that we face, making students and parents aware of the service. Our goal is for the CBCA to become a household name. And when a student thinks about attending an historically Black college or university, we're the first ones that they think about. Because even if you're not interested in going to any of the schools that we represent, to be able to pay $20, and in interest of full disclosure, that may go back up. It was normally $35, but because of COVID, our 20th year anniversary, we lowered it. But when you think about, being able to pay that one fee to apply to all of these colleges and what that means to, let's say for a student, and I hope I'm not rambling, but I want to make sure.
Well, no, I will say this. I will jump in here for clarity purposes and correct me if I'm wrong. That's less than $5 per app per school. Safely put. If I put my Morgan State non-artistic education hat on, where I got to do basic computations, I think that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.50 to $5.
I mean, when I think about the quality public education that I received in Roanoke Valley, somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, it is. It's less than $5 per school, so it's still a value even at $35.
Absolutely. So when you think about what that means, let's say for a student with a 3.0 or better, 1,000 or better on the SAT, 21 or better on the ACT, and again having a 3.0, that student's in a position to receive a scholarship to practically all the colleges that we work with. So I will say to you and your viewing audience or listening audience, whatever the case may be, if they've heard about a student within the last 4 or 5 years that has gone viral and has received millions of dollars and multiple acceptance letters, I guarantee you, more often than not, that student has used the Common Black College application. I mean, like we just had a young lady the other day on a show we do called HBCU Live. She received $1.2 million in scholarship offers. We had another brother a few weeks ago, he received $1.5 million in scholarship offers and multiple acceptance letters. That's fairly common. We have students that have been featured in practically every major publication throughout the country and several throughout the world. So that's that. But just as important, Mark, I was not a scholar coming out of high school. And I wanted to create an opportunity for those kids that were not quote unquote scholars to be in a position to be admitted to school. So for those students that have 1.2, I mean, I had a 1.7. I was in Texas giving a presentation. I said I had a 1.7 coming out of high school. The kids say, "Is that possible?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, it's possible." So I had a 1.7, a 720 at best on the SAT, and I think I was like 454 out of 457. But one of the colleges, Virginia State, gave me an opportunity to go to school. So I wanted to create that same opportunity. So, you know, for those students that are doing well in school, that's fantastic. But just as important, as you know, Mark, there are a lot of students that are walking around buildings in various school districts throughout the country that if given the opportunity, they can successfully matriculate at our institutions. So the application actually provides those kind of opportunities as well. So regardless as to whether you're a quote unquote scholar or you're a marginal student or whatever the case may be, because it's inherent in the mission of some of the colleges that we work with to give students a chance to go to school. So we think of the CBCA in many cases as an educational lifeline. I'll tell you a story. I like to give anecdotes. I was in a high school about a year or so ago, and this student was running down the hall with an acceptance letter saying, "I'm going to college. I'm going to college." And I asked the counselor, she was like, "Rob," I asked, what's going on? She's like, "Rob, you would not believe that student was probably," and I'm going to say, she didn't say worse, I'm paraphrasing, but probably one of the worst students in the school in terms of discipline. So to think, and in terms of his academics, so she was like, to think that he is now that much interested in going to college is huge, because the application, and again, it becomes an educational lifeline. And because we are literally shifting the paradigm in terms of how schools can recruit students and potentially reach those students that much earlier, that we are able to bring about a behavioral shift. And now those students that didn't think of themselves as having an opportunity to go to college can now do so.
And really that just kind of fits into the whole mission of HBCUs.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to my final question. HBCUs for guys like us were the last chance to get in. Or, I'm sorry, it's good to talk to somebody that went to a black college like me. Sorry about that, y'all. And you know what I'm saying,
absolutely. Bro. Absolutely.
You know, this new phenomenon, which is not a bad thing, but I didn't go to a HBCU. I went to a black college.
Absolutely.
But how have you seen the landscape in terms of perception as a first option for this new generation of college student to look at going to an HBCU primarily, instead of, like, you know, second or third option on their tree? And you know, you enter a community that previously a lot of people, once their parents had some success, wanted that upward mobility education wise, and now there's a perception that you're upwardly mobile just as you are academically by coming home, so to speak.
You know what? It kind of undulates, Mark. You know, during the Cosby era,
A
Tom
different
Joyner.
world, yeah.
Absolutely. We saw a huge influx. And even before that, like when you or I were in school, it was basically free when you think about it. You know what I mean? You probably got 89, 90, 99% of a financial aid package, so you didn't have to worry about the cost necessarily of school. That coupled with the Cosby efforts, Tom Joyner, all of these things that were going on.
HBCU sports on TV.
HBCU sports, you know, all of those things
Yes.
led to a renaissance period for our institutions. But the minute that the Fed started to pull back that aid and introduce all of these different loans, and our schools now had to compete in a different space for students, a lot of the issues that some of our schools couldn't compete, quite honestly, okay? But now, as a result of what's going on with Black Lives Matter, with this whole level of consciousness that is being enhanced to the extent where we are becoming pro-Black again. And I told you this the other day when we were talking, Barack Obama did what so many of us have tried to do in previous years. And I think I told you that I can remember countless occasions where I'm presenting to potential sponsors and I'm saying it's a common Black college application. And everything was fine. And we'd almost settled on the amount of sponsorship, but when they truly understood that it was a common Black college application, they were like, well, can we tone that down a bit? Can we call it, you know, HBCUs or so? But when Barack Obama, a few months ago, went on television and said to the world that Black colleges are viable institutions, it's almost like it was eye-opening for the world. You know what I mean? Like this, the veil of ignorance had been lifted. You know what I mean?
Parting of the equity and academia seat.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, and again, I would argue that was a seminal moment. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't been in the space for so long. That coupled with Black Lives Matter, coupled with your efforts, coupled with so many other things that are going on throughout the world. These athletes now opting to go to HBCUs, and I think we're in a place where things are changing. And now we're moving back to that Renaissance period. And now our institutions have a huge opportunity because people are taking another look.
Let me jump in here because we're coming up against it. I got to get this one in because you've gone from virtual to viral, and you've got several viral or virtual college tours that are coming up this fall. Talk about when they are and how people can get involved, because I'm sure there's an online application process, and with a lot of kids being homeschooled during the COVID-19 thing going back this fall, they're still going to be looking for recruiting and application opportunities.
Absolutely.
So talk about when that's going to happen.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. So this Saturday, we'll launch the first of 7, this is a long name, HBCU free Facebook Live worldwide college fairs. So it's going to be on Facebook. So for those of you that are interested, all you have to do is go to commonblackcollegeapp.com to register. It's absolutely free. You don't have to pay anything at all. The first fair, again, will be held this Saturday, the 25th, from 1 to 4 p.m. You'll be able to log on to the Common Black College Application Facebook page, the public page, because we were going to do it on the private, but now we're going to do it on the public page and view this event. We'll do a general session where the HBCU Live crew will come on. We're going to have a couple of those students that I was telling you about talk about those millions of dollars and how they received those scholarships. And then we will adjourn for everyone to go to the various Facebook pages of the schools that will be participating. Again, it's like you said, we're going to be doing 7 of these. And one of the reasons that these are going to become so important, college reps will not be coming to your high school anytime soon. There will not be any live college fairs anytime soon. There are no classics. So because there are no classics, there will be no classic college fairs. So it's going to be imperative that students take advantage of these opportunities. And one of the other things that we're doing, Mark, briefly, we're also doing a fair for school counselors. It's going to be a school counselor college fair with HBCUs. So those two, and again, you can get all of that information on our website at commonblackcollegeapp.com.
So you've got 7 college fairs that are coming up this fall, while recruiters and no classics. And that's the one thing about classics that doesn't get to talked about. HBCU sports events make a commitment just about at all the big ones.
The CIAA, the classics,
recruiting
the
opportunities.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, boys and girls, we HBCU virtual college tours, commonblackapp.com, 24/7, 360, all over the place, cyberspace, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also, they've got their own app, Common Spelling. Hey, look, keep us in the loop in the gray areas so we can bring you back sometime in the not too distant future. And it's just a tremendous concept how you get more bang. That, you know, even if it goes back to $35, y'all, it is still the most bang for your college application buck. And at the end of the day, you know, dollar for dollar, HBCUs have been doing great things. And this app is linking you to a spot where, who knows, you could become the next great thing. So, Robert, thank you for taking the time to join us, my friend.
And before I go, Mark, I just want to thank you for all that you do to expand the awareness of HBCUs and keep up the good work, my brother.
Thank you, Robert Mason from commonblackcollegeapp.com. Commonblackcollegeapp.com. Those of you who got that degree or even flirted with getting a few credits can spell that. Common spelling all the way through your URL. Lock it in, put it down, tell your kids. They'll tell their friends about it, so on, so on. And when we come out of this thing about the fall of 2021, going into the spring of 2022, you're going to want to be on an HBCU campus.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're going to want, and now's the time to make sure you're there. Thanks again, Robert. Appreciate you, my friend.
All right, brother. Take care and stay safe.
You too. That's going to close the book on this edition of The Gray Area. Remember, somewhere between black and white, there is that shade of gray. And as always, protect yourself, wash your hands, make sure you keep proper social distancing, and by all means, give somebody you love a hug tonight. You may not get a chance to do it tomorrow. Till next time, I'm Mark Gray. I'll catch you back here in The Gray Area.